You are in your 30s right now. Maybe you just turned 32 and you are finally starting to feel like you have your life together. You have a real job, maybe a place of your own, a 401k you enrolled in because HR told you to. Or maybe you are 38, making genuinely good money, and yet there is this quiet financial anxiety that creeps in late at night. The kind that makes you wonder if you are actually on track or just doing a convincing impression of someone who is. You contribute to your retirement account. You have some savings. On the surface, things look okay. But okay is not what you worked this hard for, and deep down, you know it. Here is the truth that most financial content never says plainly enough. The decisions you make in your 30s, not your 40s, not your 50s, your 30s, are the decisions that will determine whether you retire with genuine financial freedom or whether you arrive at 65 exhausted, dependent on Social Security, and quietly terrified about what happens next. This is not a scare tactic. It is the compound math of real life, and it operates with complete indifference to your intentions. Think about your financial future like a set of railroad tracks that are slowly splitting in two directions. Right now, in your 30s, you are still close enough to the fork that both paths are visible. You can still choose. In 10 years, those tracks will be so far apart that switching from one to the other will require something close to a financial rescue mission. The gap between retiring on your own terms and retiring in quiet desperation is not created by luck or inheritance or even raw income. It is built or not built during this decade through specific behaviors and specific decisions that most people either make deliberately or stumble through randomly. Most people in their 30s are doing just enough to feel like they are on track. They clicked the enrollment checkbox. They put in enough to get the match. They have a vague sense of a retirement age and a vague sense that it will somehow work out. But feeling like you are on track and mathematically being on track are two entirely different things. And the data, which we are going to dig into right now, makes that distinction uncomfortably clear. So stay with me for this whole video. What you are about to learn is not complicated, but it is important. And for most people, it arrives about 5 years too late. You are watching it now, which means you still have time to use it. Let's start with the reality of where most Americans your age actually stand, because context matters before everything else. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent survey of consumer finances, the median retirement account balance for Americans between the ages of 35 and 44 is approximately $45,000, not the average, the median. The person right in the middle of the entire American workforce in this age range has $45,000 saved for retirement. The average is much higher, somewhere around $130,000, but averages are inflated by a small number of very high earners. The median tells you the real story, and $45,000 is not a retirement. At a standard withdrawal rate, $45,000 is about 18 months of living expenses, if you are modest about it. Now let's think about what you actually need. A widely accepted retirement income target is replacing roughly 70 to 80% of your pre-retirement income. If you are earning $75,000 a year right now, you will likely need somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000 a year in retirement just to maintain your current standard of living. Assume you retire at 65 and live to 85. That is a 20-year retirement. At $55,000 a year, you need $1.1 million, and that is before adjusting for healthcare costs, which research consistently shows rise faster than general inflation as people age, or for the very real possibility that you live past 85. $1.1 million. And the median 30-something in America has $45,000 saved toward that target. The gap is real, it is large, and it cannot be closed by vague intentions and a contribution rate that has not changed since you enrolled. The net worth picture tells a similar story. The Federal Reserve data shows median net worth for Americans aged 35 to 44 at roughly $100,000. But the majority of that figure for most households is tied up in home equity, which is illiquid, dependent on the housing market, and cannot be spent without also giving up the roof over your head. Strip out home equity from the median 30-something's balance sheet, and the underlying financial net worth, the actual mobile, investable wealth, is far lower for most people than the headline number suggests. And the savings rate problem is arguably the most consequential piece of all this. According to Vanguard's annual How America Saves report, the median employee savings rate in defined contribution plans is around 7% of income. Most financial planning research puts the minimum savings rate required for a secure retirement at 10 to 15% of gross income, and closer to 20% for anyone who started later or has gaps in their savings history. 7% of income invested over a working lifetime does not produce retirement freedom. It produces retirement anxiety. Here is why your 30s specifically are the single most important financial decade of your life. The answer is compound interest. And I want to make sure this concept lands the way it deserves to, because most people have heard the phrase, but never actually felt it in dollar terms. Suppose you start putting $500 a month into a broadly diversified index fund at age 30. The U.S. stock market has historically returned roughly 7% per year over long periods after adjusting for inflation, a widely used and conservative planning figure that financial planners and institutions use regularly. If you start at 30 and invest consistently until 65, you have 35 years of growth working for you. At 7% average annual return, $500 a month grows to approximately $900,000 at retirement, close to $1 million from $500 a month. Now suppose you wait just 10 years, same person, same $500 a month, same 7% return, but you start at 40 instead of 30, 25 years of growth instead of 35. Your $500 a month now grows to approximately $385,000. Still meaningful. But the gap between $900,000 and $385,000, that $515,000 difference, was created entirely by 10 years of waiting. Not 10 years of spending lavishly. Not 10 years of financial recklessness. Just 10 years of putting it off. That is the brutality and the beauty of compounding. Every dollar invested at 30 is worth roughly $4 at retirement. Every dollar invested at 40 is worth roughly $2 at retirement. The math does not bend for circumstances. It does not make exceptions for how busy you are or how real life felt during those 10 years. Your 30s are the last decade where you have a full 30-plus year compounding runway ahead of you. Once you cross 40, you are in the mid-growth phase. Still valuable, still absolutely worth pursuing. But the acceleration of early compounding is gone. You cannot borrow it back. You can only use it while you still have it. Now let me make this concrete by introducing you to two people, both 34 years old, both earning $82,000 a year, both with roughly $40,000 already saved in a 401k from earlier jobs. Their starting lines are nearly identical. Their trajectories are not. The first is Marcus. Marcus enjoys his life. He eats out regularly. He has multiple streaming subscriptions. He takes a vacation every year. He is not ascetic. But Marcus decided a few years ago that his retirement was too important to leave to chance. He contributes 15% of his salary to his 401k, captures his full employer match on top of that, and puts a small monthly amount into a Roth Individual Retirement Account, or Roth IRA, that he opened on a Saturday afternoon in about 20 minutes. When he got a raise last year, he moved half of the after-tax increase directly into his savings rate before it could become a habit. His lifestyle is comfortable, but his wealth is also growing. The second is Jennifer. Jennifer is smart, works hard, and genuinely intends to get more serious about retirement, but real life keeps intercepting. There was the move to a more expensive city for a better job opportunity, a wedding, a baby, a new car lease that made sense at the time, and a kitchen renovation that felt necessary once they bought the house. She contributes 4% to her 401k, just enough to capture most of the employer match, and every time income increases, the expenses seem to find a way to keep pace. Jennifer plans to start contributing more when things stabilize. Things have not stabilized yet. At 65, Marcus arrives at retirement with approximately $1.6 million, including his employer match and the compounding growth on his starting balance. Jennifer, contributing at 4% with her employer match, arrives with approximately $850,000. The gap between them is roughly $750,000. That is not a rounding error. That is the difference between retiring and choosing what to do with your time versus retiring and recalculating every month whether you can afford to stay in your house. At a 4% annual withdrawal rate, which is the standard used by most financial planners to ensure a portfolio lasts through a long retirement, Marcus draws about $64,000 a year from his investments. Add Social Security, and he is living comfortably on over $80,000 a year in retirement income. Jennifer draws about $34,000 a year from her portfolio. Add Social Security, and she reaches perhaps $55,000 a year, before accounting for healthcare costs that tend to rise sharply in your 70s. That is not retirement desperation, but it is retirement fragility. One major health event, one market downturn at the wrong moment, one long-term care need, and the buffer disappears. Same salary, same starting balance, same time horizon. Different savings rate. That is the two-path reality of your 30s. Now let's talk about the 5 most common financial mistakes I see in this age group, because knowing the path is not enough if you keep making the turns that take you off it. The first and most widespread mistake is treating the employer match as the finish line. When HR enrolls you in a 401k and asks for a contribution percentage, most people pick whatever triggers the full employer match, usually around 3 to 6% of salary, and consider the retirement box checked. The match is real money, and capturing it fully is genuinely important. But the match is a floor, not a ceiling. Contributing just enough to get the match and nothing more is like training for a marathon by running to the end of the driveway. You showed up, but you are not going anywhere. Research on retirement savings consistently shows that a savings rate of 10 to 15% of gross income, including the employer match, is a minimum starting point for retirement security, and many financial planners now recommend 15 to 20% given longer life expectancies and rising healthcare costs. The second mistake is allowing lifestyle inflation to absorb every raise. Your 30s are typically the fastest income growth decade of your career. Salaries rise, promotions happen, skills compound into better opportunities. And yet, for most people, every dollar of additional income gets converted almost immediately into additional lifestyle. A larger apartment, a newer car, restaurant spending that expands with income, subscriptions that accumulate quietly. There is nothing wrong with enjoying income growth. But when every raise is fully consumed by lifestyle, your savings rate stays flat in percentage terms and never accelerates. The financially disciplined habit is simple in theory and requires deliberate action in practice. When your income increases, move at least 50% of the net after-tax increase directly to savings or investment before it hits your checking account. The other half can absolutely improve your life, but the first half needs to build your future before lifestyle can claim it. The third mistake is carrying high-interest consumer debt while also contributing to long-term investments. Many people in their 30s are simultaneously paying 16 to 24% annual interest on credit card balances while simultaneously earning 7% in a retirement account. The math on this is unambiguous. Paying down credit card debt is a guaranteed, risk-free return equal to whatever interest rate you are paying. Carrying that debt while investing is a net negative. The practical exception is continuing to contribute to your 401k up to the employer match, because even a dollar-for-dollar match is a 100% instant return that exceeds the cost of almost any debt. Beyond the match, high-interest consumer debt should be paid off aggressively before additional investment contributions are increased. The fourth mistake is holding excessive cash well beyond the emergency fund threshold. A properly sized emergency fund, covering 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, is genuinely important and absolutely worth maintaining. But many 30-somethings have significantly more than that, sitting in regular savings accounts earning well below the inflation rate. At 2% average annual inflation, money sitting in a low-yield savings account is losing purchasing power every single day. Once your emergency fund is fully established in a high-yield savings account, additional cash that is unlikely to be needed within 2 to 3 years should be working in investments with real growth potential. The fifth mistake is delaying the Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is one of the most powerful tax-advantaged accounts available to an American household, and your 30s may represent the last window where your income is low enough to qualify for full contributions. In 2025, the income phase-out for Roth IRA contributions begins at $150,000 for single filers and $236,000 for married couples filing jointly. As incomes rise through career peaks in the 40s and 50s, more and more Americans find themselves phased out of direct Roth IRA contributions. Your 30s, while income is still climbing, are the window to build this account as fully as possible. So what does the other side look like? What are people who actually retire comfortably doing differently in their 30s? They automate their savings completely and treat it as a non-negotiable, not a goal that gets revisited when things calm down. A fixed recurring outflow that happens before any discretionary spending begins. The behavioral economics research on this is definitive. When savings are automated through payroll deductions or standing bank transfers, people consistently save more than when savings require a deliberate monthly decision. The system does the work. Willpower is not required. Automation removes the friction between intention and action. They sequence their accounts correctly. The optimal order of operations for most American households in their 30s looks something like this. First, contribute to the 401k up to the full employer match. That is a guaranteed immediate return. Second, pay down high-interest debt, meaning anything above roughly 6 to 7%. Third, max out the Roth IRA to the annual contribution limit, which in 2025 is $7,000 for people under 50. Fourth, return to the 401k and increase contributions toward the annual maximum. Fifth, if income allows beyond that, use a taxable brokerage account for additional investment. This sequence is designed around tax efficiency, guaranteed returns, and long-term compounding. Most people in their 30s have never heard it laid out in this order. They invest in low-cost, broadly diversified index funds and stay invested through market volatility. The data on this is not subtle. Over any 20-year period in modern U.S. market history, a low-cost total market index fund has outperformed the majority of actively managed funds. The reason is simple. Fees compound against you the same way returns compound for you. A fund charging 1.5% annually in fees versus a fund charging 0.1% creates a difference in ending wealth that can reach hundreds of thousands of dollars over 30 years. People who build wealth in their 30s are not sophisticated investors with complex strategies. They are consistent, boring, patient investors in simple, cheap, diversified funds. They protect their income with disability insurance. This is the financial move that almost nobody talks about and almost everybody underestimates. Your income is your most powerful wealth-building asset in your 30s. According to the Social Security Administration, roughly 1 in 4 workers today will experience a disability that prevents them from working for at least a year before reaching retirement age. A disability at 37 without proper income protection does not just pause your wealth building, it can unwind years of it in months. Long-term disability insurance, either through an employer plan or an individual policy, is a non-negotiable for anyone whose retirement depends on their continued ability to earn. And they set a specific retirement number and check their progress against it annually. Not a vague goal of enough or comfortable. An actual target, built from actual projected expenses, that allows them to calculate where they are, where they need to be, and what adjustment would close the gap. This one habit, knowing your number and reviewing it yearly, is one of the clearest behavioral differentiators between people who arrive at retirement prepared and people who arrive at retirement surprised. Here is what I want you to actually do, starting this week. This week, sit down with a notepad or a spreadsheet and take a complete financial snapshot. Log into every account, every 401k, every IRA, every savings account, every investment account, and write down the balances. Then write down every debt with its balance and interest rate. This snapshot, which most people avoid because they are afraid of what they will see, is the foundation of every financial decision you will make from this point forward. You cannot correct a trajectory you have not measured. This month, calculate your actual savings rate. Add up everything going into retirement and investment accounts each month, divide it by your gross monthly income, and convert that to a percentage. If that number is below 15%, you have a specific, actionable target to work toward. If you are not capturing your full employer match, adjust your 401k contribution immediately. That is free money you are leaving on the table every pay period. If you do not have a Roth IRA open one this month. You can do it in under 30 minutes at any major brokerage. Start with whatever amount you can, even a modest monthly contribution, because having the account open and active matters as much as the starting amount. This year, build the raise redirect habit. Every time your income increases, through a raise, a bonus, a new job, a side income, anything, commit before the money arrives to directing at least half of the net increase to savings or debt payoff. Do this through automatic transfers or payroll elections so the decision is made once and then runs on autopilot. This single behavior, practiced consistently through your 30s, is responsible for a significant portion of the wealth gap between the Marcus and Jennifer scenarios you heard earlier. Over the next 3 years, build toward 3 concrete milestones. A savings rate of 15 to 20% of gross income, including all retirement contributions. A fully funded emergency account covering 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses held in a high-yield savings account rather than a low-yield standard one. And 0 high-interest consumer debt. These 3 milestones together represent the financial foundation that virtually every person who retires comfortably had built by the time they reach their early 40s. They are not glamorous. They do not require a high income or insider knowledge. They require consistency across a specific decade. Here is the thing I want you to hold on to after this video ends. You cannot earn time back. You can earn more money. You can learn new strategies. You can recover from setbacks and rebuild savings that were paused or spent. But the compounding power of your 30s, that 30-plus year runway of growth, that period where every dollar you invest has maximum time to multiply, that window does not repeat. It exists once between roughly age 30 and 40, and then it is gone. But here is the other side of that. You are watching this now, right now, which means the window is still open. The fork in those railroad tracks is still visible. The math that makes this decade so powerful has not expired yet. The people who retire with genuine freedom, who can travel, who can be generous, who can stop working on their terms instead of the economy's terms, are not fundamentally different from you. They made specific decisions in their 30s. They were consistent about a savings rate. They resisted the gravity of lifestyle inflation. They automated their wealth building before lifestyle could claim it. That is, the whole game. And you now understand it well enough to play it correctly. One step today. Increase that contribution. Open that account. Write down that number. Your future self has been waiting for this moment, and it will not regret that you started,